Hey guys, how are you all doing today? So we are going to be doing a Q&A video. Earlier last week, I posted on my Instagram and my YouTube community page asking you guys to submit your questions, and I got a ton of questions, which is super fun. So I don't think I'll be able to answer all of them, but I am going to answer a lot of them. So this might end up being a bit of a long video, forewarning. And yeah, so I got the questions here. Before I start, please ignore the way my face looks right now. I haven't been able to wear any eye makeup or anything like that for months because I suffer from extreme eczema in the winter, and yeah, my face always blows up like a tomato whenever I try and put makeup on. So try to ignore that. Fellow sufferers of eczema out there, I feel you. It really sucks, especially in winter. But anyway, so let me get my coffee and we're going to dive in. So I divided the questions into kind of three categories. So we have paganism, then witchcraft, and then personal questions. So we're going to start with paganism here. And the first question comes from Sins Are Sincere, who asks, what originally drew you into paganism? So yeah, that's a really good question. I started becoming interested in paganism when I was around 13, 14. Part of that is I was seeking out a spirituality or a religion that was nature-based. I had also always been interested in ancient civilizations. I started learning about ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and Rome from a really young age and had always been fascinated by that history. And then also at the same time, this was maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of pop culture that was very witchy. This is when The Craft came out, this is when Practical Magic came out, Charmed was on TV, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on TV, so there was a lot of pop culture that was witchy related as well. So kind of a combination of those things led me to discover Wicca, which is a branch of paganism, and that's what I started with. So it was kind of a combo of watching all these pop culture movies featuring kind of paganism and witchcraft, and then also having an innate desire from a young age to find a spirituality that was more nature focused. Okay, next question comes from Ella Harrison, who is a fellow YouTuber. She's wonderful. Definitely check out her YouTube channel. She is asking, what is one thing that really added to your practice? For me, this is kind of simple, but I started going for a walk every day, or at least I really try to do that to get out in nature more. And because I've added that to my daily routine, it's something I really look forward to, and it's allowing me to get more in touch with the wheel of the year, the cycles of the seasons, and just feel more connected to the natural world as a whole. I know a lot of you guys are interested in seeing a video on my daily routine as a pagan, and I might do that in the future. And that's definitely something I do try to do every day, is at least take a walk in nature. Spend a little bit of time to appreciate the beauty of the earth. So great question. Let's see, Flynn the Evergreen asks, how did you find your personal path? So that's quite a journey that I'm still on, honestly. It's not like I started with something like Norse paganism and it clicked immediately and then that's my path and I followed it for 10 years or anything like that. I started, like I said, with Wicca, which is how a lot of people kind of enter into paganism. And then as I've grown, especially over the past maybe 3-4 years, I've really kind of moved a bit away from Wicca and more towards pagan reconstructionism, specifically like Norse paganism and Celtic paganism, though I do still love learning about other branches of paganism, which is why you'll see content on my channel featuring ancient Roman holidays or ancient Greek holidays. So I still am fascinated by so many different pagan paths, and it's difficult for me to pick one thing and just go with it. And that's not just with paganism, that's like everything in my life. I find it very difficult to pick something and follow through. I'm a Libra, and that's definitely a trait I think a lot of fellow Libras share. But yeah, so it's still evolving. I am still figuring it out myself. Let's see. I am Victor03 asks how to worship the gods. So there's lots of different things you can do, and there's not any one specific rule book here that's going to tell you how to do it. But a few of the ways I do it is by leaving offerings. You can pray. Praying is something that people don't normally associate with paganism, but there is a lot of historical precedent for prayer in many of the pagan branches, so you can do that. And then also celebrating the holidays, celebrating the wheel of the year. Those are probably the main 3 ways that I worship the gods, though I don't even use the word worship. I think of it more as like maintaining a connection. So it's not really kind of like groveling on the ground or something like that. It's very different than like Christian praying. It's more like building a connection, building a relationship with deity by giving offerings and things like that. So yeah, let's see. Noon on Aria, sorry if I am pronouncing your username wrong, says, I have a hard time knowing which pantheon I should worship. I feel connected to many goddesses. So that's totally fine. You can follow an eclectic pagan path if you choose to, which means you work with multiple pantheons. That's something you'll see a lot in modern Wicca, for example. A lot of Wiccans will work with goddesses from many different pantheons. Or you can just maybe work with one particular pantheon for a while, try it out, see if you feel connected with it, and then if not, move on to the next. So like I said, it's a process. It's totally fine if you're feeling confused on which path is best for you. So I always recommend trying things out and seeing what feels like it fits. Let's see, Kayla Mishmael asks, do you have any thoughts on atheopaganism? So if you're not familiar with atheopaganism, it's basically like you connect with nature, you care about nature, but you don't believe in any deity or deities. So you're atheist, but you're very nature focused and nature minded. So I don't know if there are many atheopagans out there, but for me personally, I think it's fine. Like if you want to do that, sure. But I kind of feel like, what's the point? Or why give yourself a label if you're just wanting to connect with the seasons, with nature, with, you know, planet Earth and things like that. So it's not really for me, but, you know, if you're into it, you know, go ahead. Let's see. Andy Guy asks, if Valhalla is reserved for warriors, where does everyone else go? This is a good question. So yeah, not everyone ends up in Valhalla. And of course I'm talking about Norse paganism here. I believe Freya gets like half. So she gets her pick of people. People who die at sea go to a particular giantess. I believe her name is like Ran. And then everyone else ends up, for the most part, in the realm of hell, which is nothing like the Christian hell. It's much more pleasant. But also there's a lot of theories here. There's even some sources that suggest that the Norse pagans believed in reincarnation to a certain extent, but you would be reincarnated not just into any body, but in a body within your familial line. There's a lot of conflicting information here when it comes to Norse paganism. And part of that is just we don't have that many sources, and the sources we do have were written like a couple hundred years after the Viking Age, and were usually written by like monks and Christians. So it's very tricky to get a clear understanding of the Norse pagan cosmology of the afterlife, but in general, you can go to a few different places or possibly get reincarnated. Let's see, I have another Norse pagan question, this time coming from my YouTube. Eric is asking, when it comes to reading about the Norse gods, do you have any preferences? Which modern day translation do you recommend of the Eddas? I love Jackson Crawford and his translation. I would highly recommend it. Maybe I'll link it down below. But he is also on YouTube. He's a professor out of Boulder, and he is just such a great resource for any of you interested in Norse paganism. So I would definitely recommend his translations, and also recommend his YouTube channel. So the last question in the paganism category from my YouTube community page, Almam asks, what kind of offerings do you tend to give to your gods and goddesses, and how often? So I usually give offerings on the holidays, and which deity I'm giving an offering to might depend on the holiday. So I do that. I will occasionally give offerings to certain deities on random occasions too. So it's not just the holidays. Sometimes I'm just feeling called to do that. And sometimes I'll give offerings inside on my altar. Right now I'm using this, actually you can kind of see it, this bookcase right there as my main altar space, though I also leave offerings outside as well. I usually tend to give some type of liquor if it's in the inside. So I'll use like a little offering bowl or a glass, put some mead or whiskey, something like that. If I'm outside, I usually give like fruits and vegetables. So apples are something I tend to give a lot. So I'll cut up an apple as an offering, or you can even give flowers. So anything that's gonna naturally biodegrade, I'll leave as an offering for outside. Okay, next we are on to the witchcraft questions. Hold on, let me get a sip of coffee here. Okay, let's dive in. So, oh gosh, your usernames are really difficult to pronounce sometimes. Venifica Discipulus asks, how long have you been practicing witchcraft, and what got you started? So this is kind of similar to one of the earlier questions I answered about paganism. Kind of the same thing. I've been practicing witchcraft since I was around 13, 14. In part, I mean, I was influenced by a lot of the pop culture stuff going on, the movies and things like that. But even when I was like really young, like very little, I kind of remember like going out into the woods and like playing witch and like finding little like herbs and plants and like making designs with them. So maybe it's been even longer. But yeah, I was really searching for something that could incorporate nature, and witchcraft was perfect for that. Next question. Captain Chris asks, what is the equivalent to a pendulum board for dowsing rods? So if you're unfamiliar, dowsing is a type of divination usually made up of two rods. There's different types of rods. The most common one are L rods. And usually dowsing is done specifically to find like water or metals, or like even like oil, things like that, gemstones. And how you do it is you hold the two L rods and you walk. And then if the rods cross, that means there might be something there underneath. And this is a divination practice that has been done for at least centuries. And so there isn't really an equivalent of a pendulum board, but if they cross, that's where you're supposed to dig. So it's a very kind of specific form of divination. But yeah, that's an interesting question because not many people use dowsing rods, but they can be kind of interesting. Let's see. All Red Monkey asks about witches veiling. So this is something that I recently became aware of. I wasn't aware that there were some witches doing this, so I actually looked into it. And so some witches are wearing like veils or headscarves on their head to kind of cover their hair a bit. And for me personally, I'm not interested in doing that. I don't think it's necessarily meant to restrict them. A lot of people say they find kind of empowerment in veiling. It's not really for me, though there is historical precedent for veiling or wearing a head covering, especially in Greek paganism or Roman paganism. A lot of the priestesses would cover their hair. So there is some historical precedent, but it's definitely not for me. Let's see, Lizzie and the Bats asks, my witch talk blew up. How would you recommend making it into a business? So she has a great Instagram, would definitely recommend checking her out on Instagram. And she has been posting a lot of really fun like TikToks lately on her Instagram. Now, personally, I'm not really on TikTok. I've thought about trying it out. It's probably not for me because I like long form discussions and it would be impossible for me to like limit myself to short and sweet like 60-second videos. But I know witch talk is a huge thing. I actually did a video about witch talk a while ago. And so turning something like popularity on witch talk into a business could be tricky. It's a lot easier to turn something like YouTube into a career, into a business. In part because with TikTok, it is short, but also a lot of the people on TikTok, not all of them, tend to be a bit younger. So they're not going to necessarily have a lot of funds to spend. Though one thing you can do is you need to have some type of product or service that you're offering that you can use your TikTok popularity to direct people towards. So for example, if you're a tarot reader and you're popular on TikTok, make sure you're directing people to click a link that's going to take them to your services page. So you'll get a lot more signups that way. Or if you're selling a product, you can also direct people to that. So you really need just a place to direct people towards. You can do sponsored content on TikTok, though as far as I know, there aren't too many people in this witchy pagan field that are looking for influencers on TikTok right now. There's probably a few. It's a lot easier to make money on YouTube or some of the other platforms. But that's cool that you're doing good on there. So yeah, let's see. I have an astrology question, so it's only tangentially related to witchcraft, but Chelsea Drops asks, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin astrology / stock market picks being informed by astrology? So I would definitely not pick a stock or get Bitcoin based on an astro reading. I do know some people do that. I would love to see a scientific study. If you could link certain stock market choices to astrology, that would be really fun, but I would be terrified to kind of gamble my money that way. So be cautious is, I guess, what I would say. It's probably not the best idea, though I do love when people take witchcraft and magic and kind of do studies or scientific studies with that, and that could be a really fun study to do to see if predictions are correct and how much income you could make through the stock market. One of the fun things I've done with tarot is, so the minor arcana in tarot line up with a traditional playing card deck. So sometimes I'll play poker and I'll look at my cards as if they were kind of the minor arcana. So some minor arcana are gonna tell you to take more risks than others, and I can play poker kind of using that tarot knowledge a little bit. And I've had some success with that. I actually did a video way back when about how to use your tarot knowledge to win at poker. But in general, I probably wouldn't invest all your money into the stock market or into Bitcoin based on an astrology reading. Laura Compton asks, what are your thoughts on some magic practitioners trying to use science to explain magic or the metaphysical? Does it take away from the magic of the experience? Personally, I think it's so fun. I really would recommend this book, Real Magic by Dean Radin, which takes a scientific perspective on magic and does a lot of research and scientific experiments to prove the existence of magic. And that stuff I find so fascinating because I do think a lot of what makes witchcraft or magic successful is the placebo effect, plus the concept that thoughts have power, and especially if you get enough people thinking the same thing together, that kind of can even increase the probability of something happening. So I think it's cool. I don't think it takes away from the experience. I think a lot of witchcraft and successful witchcraft might in the future be part of science. We just kind of haven't figured out the science quite yet. So yeah, I think that's fun, and I would definitely recommend that book if you're interested in the scientific perspective on witchcraft. Okay, last question in the witchcraft category is about tarot. Sal Jazz asks, what are your daily tarot practices? Do you have a general reading spread? So for tarot, I do sometimes pick a card of the day. I do enjoy that as a daily tarot practice. Not every day, but sometimes I really end up doing that a lot, and that's fun. It kind of gives you just like a touch point or a little piece of guidance to carry you through the day. I always pick it in the morning, and I usually put it on my altar, so I kind of see it periodically throughout the day. In terms of a general reading spread, I like 3-card spreads a lot. There are so many different types of 3-card spreads, so you can really pick a 3-card spread based on whatever scenario, whatever you're trying to figure out. Of course, you know, more advanced spreads are good for certain things, but I love a quick 3-card spread to just kind of check in, see how things are going. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Oh, and if you are not aware yet, I did just finish my tarot deck, the Key Tarot. I have the link down below. This is a tarot deck that I've been working on for like 2 years with my friend Jamie. We created a kind of luxury, really shiny, really gold tarot deck based on the Rider-Waite deck, but we did make some changes and we did place it in the real world. So we used models from the pagan and the witchy and the tarot community for our deck. So definitely check it out at the link below if you haven't ordered a copy yet. Yeah, it's been such a huge project. So I love tarot. It's one of my kind of daily practices in general. So yeah, great question. Okay, we are on to our last category, which is personal questions. So Caroline Crammy asks, what did you study in college? In college, I did art history and Asian studies. So I love art in general. I love history, so it was a good fit. Was it practical? Was it a good idea to major in that? definitely not, especially considering I graduated college in the midst of a recession, which is one of the main reasons I just left to go live abroad for a few years, teaching English, because there was no way I was going to get a job in the States. So even though I loved learning about art history, and I also learned through the Asian studies part, I learned a lot about Buddhism, I learned a lot about Shinto, and I learned Japanese. But yeah, don't do what I did. Study something practical that will actually land you a job after you graduate. So let's see. Next question. Gone in 60 Simmons asks, what do you do for a living? So I actually do this for a living. So I do a number of things, but all associated with paganism and witchcraft for the most part. I have my YouTube channel that brings in a little income. I do tarot readings and tarot lessons. I just mentioned I created a tarot deck, so I have a physical product that I'm selling. I do one-on-one business coaching, so I help other people in this field, other kind of spiritual entrepreneurs. I help them with their websites, their social media marketing, their graphic design, their user experience design on their site. So a lot of tech stuff in that realm. I have a Patreon, link below if you're not my patron yet. And I occasionally do sponsorships. So I cobble together all of these different income streams. And that's what I do for a living. And I am so happy. I love being able to do this for a living. It's the best job I've ever had. Let's see. Lynn's Faye asks, do you sometimes feel as if you are too normal compared to others in the pagan community? That is super funny, and I do sometimes, honestly. I was really kind of intimidated about starting my own Instagram and my own YouTube channel because I do not quite fall into that witchy aesthetic. I don't wear a lot of black, I'm not goth, I don't have a ton of tattoos, and I'm kind of a minimalist, so I don't even have that much stuff. And a lot of the witchcraft that you see on social media, you're seeing the stuff, you know, the altars with all of the statues and all of the candles and all of the herbs, and I just have a few of each of those things. So yeah, I was really intimidated because I am, quote, too normal. But I did it anyway, and at this point I've kind of embraced it. I don't think you need to fall into the witchy aesthetic in order to be a witch, or fall into a pagan aesthetic, I guess, in order to be a pagan. Just be yourself. And sometimes I do feel a little bit too normal, but I want to be honest with you guys. This is how I dress. This is what my living room looks like, and I'm still a pagan. A lot of you guys are asking about my husband. I got several questions here. What is your spouse's involvement / interest in your spiritual journey? Is your husband pagan? I'm interested to know if your husband's also pagan, and if not, how he feels about your spiritual path. Has it created any issues, or has there always been acceptance? So my husband is not pagan. He is kind of agnostic, so he did not really grow up in a religious home, neither did I. So he really doesn't have a problem with my beliefs, with my practice, with me doing this for a living. He's very accepting of it, which is wonderful. We've never really run into any issues. If he had grown up in like a Christian household, I could see that that might have caused some issues. So I guess I'm lucky in that way. He's always been very supportive, but no, he is not pagan. So he doesn't really kind of help me out with my rituals or my YouTube channel. I kind of do all of this stuff on my own, which is totally fine. And another reason why I want to make lots of friends in the pagan community, since he's not pagan, I kind of need to find fellow pagans that I can chat with and things like that. Okay, last question. Brianne asks, when you were working a normal job, how did you balance your pursuit of your interests in paganism and witchcraft with normal adult life? And how do you balance normal adult life with your passions even now, considering there is so much of paganism and esoterica to explore? So before I did this full-time, so I started doing this kind of stuff full-time about 3 years ago, I would fit paganism and witchcraft in a couple different ways. I still celebrated pagan holidays, so that was one thing. I still kind of had a bit of a daily tarot practice. I would draw a daily card. I would do readings for myself sometimes. Occasionally, if I was in the mood, I might do a little witchcraft here and there. So it obviously wasn't as much as I'm doing now, but I was still able to fit it in. And now with kind of adult life, kind of being crazy and everything like that, I do tend to find a good balance, I think. Since I do this full time, I'm able to fit in paganism and witchcraft much easier, but I still make time for all my non-pagan friends and all my non-pagan activities. So that is that. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. And wonderful questions, guys. You guys really came up with some great ones. So thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button down below. And I'll see you next week. Bye.